Dragon Ball is the impossible anime. Or manga. Both, but manga first.
Far away, in an enchanted land that seemed untouched by the steady march of time, there lived an old master named Gohan, who found a baby boy abandoned in the wilderness of the region. The old master raised the boy.
For all intents and purposes, Dragon Ball shouldn't exist. Yet it does. And not just exist, it is the biggest intellectual property to ever have come out of Japan, barring maybe Oda Sensei's epic as fuck One Piece. Its collected volumes have sold over 160 million copies in Japan and are estimated to have sold 250 to 300 million copies worldwide, making it the second or maybe the third best-selling manga series of all time. It birthed an entire genre of storytelling in manga and anime. It influenced everything that has come after it, from Hunter x Hunter. No, I'm not going to not say the X. One Piece, Naruto, Bleach. I mean, that's a reductive statement in itself, since all those stories are part of the genre that Dragon Ball created. And yet the strangest thing about it is, it was never planned. It wouldn't exist if not for one evening when Toriyama sensei was wondering what to work on after his manga Dr. Slump was coming to an end. And as he sat there with his editor wondering what to write about, his wife walks in with tea and comments how Toriyama sensei was always watching kung fu movies while drawing. And Baby Bok Choy! Inspiration hit Toriyama like a sack full of Jackie Chan's balls, baby! He immediately got to writing about what would later become Dragon Ball. He wrote in one shot called Dragon Boy. And even then, Akira Toriyama never planned Dragon Ball out, although he's notoriously infamous about giving inconsistent answers. But he has owned up to the fact that he wanted to end the story at different points in no less than, well, many occasions. Many occasions. Hell, he's on record as to saying that he wanted to end it after the very first arc of the manga, which sees Goku, Bulma and the original gang search for the 7 Dragon Balls. So something that wasn't planned out at all, and by all accounts only exists because the editors pushed the genius mangaka to create more. But I'm not here to talk about how Dragon Ball was created or what its impact has been on the industry as a whole. I want to talk about what makes Dragon Ball unique. Now look, what I'm about to say is my opinion and is to be treated as such. You can of course disagree with it. Let me know in the comments how full of shit I am or how my understanding of literary concepts is limited. But hear me out. To understand the rest of this video, you need to understand 2 concepts. The kinds of stories that exist and the difference between character development and character growth. There are 2 types of stories, plot-driven and character-driven. These 2 can of course overlap. However, one will always be primary and the other ancillary. The key to identifying what kind of story you're telling or enjoying is to focus on what's at stake, the world or a particular character. Plot-driven stories mostly deal with the fate of the world being literal or figurative. In any case, if the hero of the story were to be defeated, the world as they know it will cease to exist. In a character-driven story, something or someone important to the protagonist is at stake. It can even be the protagonist himself. Which brings us to the distinction at hand. If your story is character-driven, then you'll have character development. If your story is plot-driven, then your character will have character growth. Now before I get into the difference between character development and character growth, let me ask you, what kind of story do you think Dragon Ball is? And for the sake of my sanity, I'm only counting the Dragon Ball saga and not Super. Because Super can kiss my ass. It's stupid and it's bad and it really should not exist. So what kind of story do you think Dragon Ball is? Plot-driven or character-driven? It is both. Depending on the kind of story one intends to tell, character is defined in different ways. In a character-driven story, characters are defined by their choices and we judge them by their actions when they're forced to decide. In a plot-driven story, characters are defined by their opposites and more or less their reaction to certain situations. When seen through this lens, a theme starts to develop. Dragon Ball is a unique story in which it puts the same amount of importance on both the plot and the character, and it does so not by having 1, but 2 protagonists. Did I just blow your mind? I did, didn't I? I did, right? But Dragon Ball did not have Vegeta, it was only Goku's story. Well, there is no Dragon Ball Z. It's all one story for Toriyama and the manga readers. It was Toei who made the distinction. And so, when read or watched over its entirety, Dragon Ball has 2 protagonists, Goku and Vegeta. So a term that I see get thrown around a lot lately is character development and to a lesser extent, character growth. The 2 terms though are often used interchangeably and it irks the fuck out of me because they're distinctly different and there's a reason for said distinction. So far so good, but in order to go ahead, there needs to be an understanding between you and I. Much like telling a story, this is the jumping off point, where you decide, if you haven't already, that everything I have to say is bullshit and a waste of your time, or that I may be onto something. What you have to understand and comprehend is this. Characters are not what they say. Characters are not what other characters say about them. Characters are what they do and what they do not do. A lot, and I mean a lot of people these days keep talking about how Goku is a one-dimensional character, has no arc, and is in general a boring character. To that I say, you what, mate? The place where this misunderstanding stems from is not understanding the difference between character growth and character development. Goku has a flat character arc. He's an archetype, a symbol. He's the manifestation of values and everything good about human nature. Even though he himself is not human, his character arc is one of growth. Growth speaks to the obstacles Goku goes through and overcomes. What we get at the end of this kind of arc is an improvement on the initial. Goku initially was a character who did not understand how the world works. He was sheltered and had limited idea of the world he exists in. For fuck's sake, the only way he understood the basic differences between a man and a woman were by groping Bulma. He's a character that hasn't changed but has been added onto. What is also true is that external forces create the obstacle that Goku must overcome in order to gain what he lacks. Goku may affect the external world, but all his conflicts, all his obstacles are manifested in external elements. Goku himself understands that his quest is about bettering himself. He can always be better tomorrow than he is today. Imagine, if you will, an apple seed that you planted. We have no guarantee that the seed will grow into a tree. It will do things like water, sunlight, room for roots to spread, and for the tree to grow to ensure that we get a healthy apple tree that bears fruit. Many factors can come into play that may affect the tree's ability to grow. However, what is certain is that if the tree can somehow overcome these obstacles, it will grow into an apple tree. It will bear fruit, it will be exactly what we expect it to be. The truth of the matter is, seeds don't change into trees, they grow into them. And no matter what the seed grows through to become a tree, the tree will always bear apples. That's what symbols are. Goku is a symbol. No matter what he goes through, his inner truth won't change. His understanding of the world won't change, and the world will change in reaction to him. Goku is a passive character in a plot-driven story. He likes to fight, but he doesn't go looking for fights. He values his family and his friends, and he fights to protect them. We need Goku to be an unchanging character because he works as a symbol for all the values and the morals that we believe in or want to believe in. A constantly shifting and changing symbol will ultimately lose its meaning. The moral value of such characters will constantly be in flux, and as far as symbolism goes, its constant nature is what allows us as a human being to aspire to be like them. This is why Goku is largely unchanged in the core concept of the character. He goes through many things that test what it is he stands for. However, his identity is largely intact, and what he stands for is self-improvement. That there will always be someone better than you, and there will always be someone stronger, but you never ever stop working no matter what you achieve. And that there are no shortcuts in life, even if you can light up your hair by screaming like a motherfucker who just got his toe stubbed. Symbols are there to be believed in, to be aspired to. You cannot relate to a symbol because you can only try to be like them, not be them, since it's incredibly difficult to overcome our human condition. And that unrelatability is why people don't understand Goku. So now that we've established that part of Dragon Ball is a plot-driven story with a passive protagonist, we come to a point where Toriyama Sensei's real genius shines through. Well, besides his amazing art, paneling, character design, inks, action scenes. It is how he flips the script halfway through in Dragon Ball Z. He suddenly makes the story into a Shakespearean tragedy. With the introduction of Vegeta, Dragon Ball gets his second protagonist and essentially changes from a plot-driven story to a character-driven story. Goku's arc takes a back seat to Vegeta's emotional roller coaster of a journey. It becomes the story of a man who believed a prophecy which turned out to not be about him. And so, for the rest of his life, despite doing everything better than the man who took away the one thing he held most dear, his pride, he would never measure up. He would always play catch up. He would always fail to restore his pride. Vegeta was content with his position as a Saiyan, seeing as how he represented the pinnacle of the Saiyan race. The main thing about Vegeta is that he defines himself by his pride, and had more pride than the average Saiyan since he was more pleased with his position and the societal hierarchy beliefs. Because of this, he shows even less compassion than the average Saiyan and puts down others to satisfy his ego that his pride and his upbringing created. This was shown when he was first introduced, instantly turning down bringing back Raditz, which Nappa suggested because of Raditz's inability to meet the expectations Vegeta's outlook of life placed on him by not defeating warriors with lower fighting powers. Because he values what he was brought up to believe more, he judges others solely on his belief without a shred of compassion. When the mighty prince gets beaten by a lowly Saiyan, his character changes. The lie that he believes that he's meant to be the greatest Saiyan of all time is broken. The only thing he held on to as his planet was destroyed and his parents killed was his pride. It's what held him together. His entire identity and self-worth shattered in one fight. And on Namek, he pushes back and he changes. From a villain to a neutral character to an anti-hero. Remember the time we talked about an apple tree? This time, imagine a caterpillar. The caterpillar lives a life where no particular end is promised. The caterpillar must make many choices to reach the end of its life cycle. They could be stepped upon, eaten, they may not find enough food, or their food source may be taken away. Then there is a chrysalis moment where the caterpillar may turn into a butterfly. This moment is crucial. The caterpillar may never emerge from the chrysalis. The chrysalis may be destroyed. We don't know what kind of butterfly will emerge from the chrysalis. Its shape, its color, all the choices the caterpillar made up until this moment will inform what happens next, if anything happens at all. This arc also has a chrysalis moment, where Vegeta's choices build up to a final choice that affirms who he has become as a result. Much like the butterfly, there is no going back to being the caterpillar. Characters that change allows us to process our inner desires and personal struggles. We see the changes and choices Vegeta makes and we identify with them, or at the very least sympathize with others in those situations. Vegeta has gone through transformations that make him completely unrecognizable from the person he was at the start of his arc. And that change is irreversible. Vegeta is such an interesting character because of two things. A. He's an active character in a character-driven story. He makes things happen. And B. He's more human than he cares to admit. I mean, he's a Saiyan. But, like, this is a metaphor? You get it, right? Anyways, we need Vegeta to change and grow. Realize his limitations and accept it because that is what we do. We try our best and we accept our limitations. But in that, we understand and accept ourselves. As I'm winding this down, here's my final pitch to you guys. Dragon Ball is a saga of two men, both fighting to better themselves, to realize who they are. But in that search, we have an unflinching, unchanging symbol in Goku who grows over the story, and a struggling, changing character in Vegeta who develops over the story. It's a heady mix of two different styles of storytelling mixed into one with two equally amazing protagonists. For Goku, the stakes are always the world and his friends. But for Vegeta, the stakes are always personal. It's always his own pride. No matter who you relate to, no matter who you aspire to, you cannot deny Dragon Ball as an impossible story works without both of them.